right, well, we're going to go ahead and get started. I want to say thank you to everyone who is joining us live, and also say thank you to everyone who is catching this session on a replay. This is a session that we put out there really on a whim, really quickly, so that we could provide just help and value to people during a pretty turbulent time. As you all know, we're going through a very unusual and ever-changing uncertain time in our nation and in the world, and it's impacting a lot of businesses. And depending upon what your business is, you might be shut down completely. You might be working from home. You may still be working from your location, but just in a different capacity. So depending upon your business, you're impacted in a lot of different ways. And what we wanted to do is provide you, when things get really uncertain and it feels really gray, what can be really helpful is to have a framework, something solid and something really organized to sort of grab onto to help you start to innovate and think your way through the potential ideas and potential directions that you could go. So what we want to provide you today is a framework that you can use to start thinking about, not only in the situation that we're in now, how you can serve your customers and, more importantly, stay relevant to your customers, but also we want to provide you a framework that, frankly, later on, as you're making pivots in your business or as you're thinking about new ventures or new types of customers, and any changes that may happen in the future, you can come back to this framework and use the exact same thing to help you innovate in your business. So we're really excited to dive in today. I know people have really crazy schedules and things are very strange right now. So I'm going to jump right in and we'll get right to content. All right, so the title of our session today is When You Can't Focus on Revenue, Focus on Relevance. And the reason why we titled it this way is that, again, a lot of businesses are operating at no or very low capacity these days. So revenue is something that we aren't focusing on in the traditional sense of the word. We're not releasing new products or releasing new services necessarily in the way that we would before. But what's really important is, while we're in this pause period, while we're in this time when consumers are potentially, distracted by even more things than they normally are, remaining relevant is going to be absolutely critical. So that's why we were really excited to do this session for you all today. So I probably don't have to say it, but we're all facing really uncertain times, and a lot of us are concerned about what is going to happen to our businesses during this time and also afterward. We share that concern with you. We are also a small business, and we definitely understand how people are feeling in these really uncertain and volatile times. But the thing that we're noticing, because we're in the business that we are, and I'll talk to you a little bit about who Sprocket is in just a minute, but we've been really watching the landscape, and what we've noticed is that a lot of businesses have gone radio silent. They've basically abandoned their consumers when they need them the most, and it's a shame because they're missing the opportunity to deepen their connection and to become even more relevant in the eyes of their consumers. But it doesn't have to be this way. You don't have to lose ground during this uncertain and just difficult time. You don't have to become a stranger to your consumers. So what we want you to take away first and foremost is that it's really time to focus on relevance and meet your consumers where they are. And that's what we're going to be focusing on today. So today, as I mentioned before, we're going to take you through a framework. This is a proven framework that you can start to understand your consumers right now, where they're at in this very strange period, and anticipate what their current goals and needs are. This is also a good opportunity for us to show you some real-time examples of different types of companies who are taking different approaches and doing this really well. And then, as we always like to do, we're going to give you some free tools so that you can put all the pieces together for yourself into a set of action steps that you can use right now to remain relevant with your consumers. Something that I will stress is this is something that you should be coming back to repeatedly throughout this period. We all know how quickly things are changing and how rapidly just different rules and regulations can impact our business at this time. And so we encourage you to come back to this set of tools so that you can respond and pivot to those changes as they come up and continue to remain relevant to your customers. A quick hello from us. We like to talk about our origin story at Sprocket as a designer, an economist, and a data scientist walk into a bar. My name is April Seifert. I am responsible for our data science practice, and on the line with me today is Justin Royer. He's responsible for all things design. So we marry two areas of the world that don't typically go together. And the reason why our methodology is so sound and also so fun is that we bring together these two areas that don't typically get to hang out with one another. We like to help companies stay relevant, and we do this by helping them really understand their consumers as humans at a deep level. We've worked with some really great companies. We have a pretty large presence in the entertainment industry, as well as within sports and within security, and some technology presence as well. So let's get back really quick to what it means to remain relevant during this time. Let's all be honest. Who was it that led the digital transformation of your company? Let's be really honest. More companies than ever right now, because of COVID-19 or the coronavirus, are rapidly moving forward in the digital transformation of their company because we're being forced to. We have to. And because of that, there are a lot of additional changes with the way that consumers are interacting with our businesses and the way that we are interacting with them. So in these difficult times, there are really 3 steps for gaining relevance. First is creating empathy for your customers, thinking about how their life might be different now than it recently was. And this might be even a week ago or a few weeks ago, depending upon where you are in the country. Second, developing new growth ideas, figuring out some deep customer insight and using that insight to help you innovate. And then prioritizing and experimenting, leveraging your existing assets for growth during this time. Experimentation is going to be really important. Gathering information as you can from your consumers is going to be really important so that you can continue to pivot and iterate through this time. All right, let's do a quick dive in. What we're going to be talking about today is something that we call the Was Now framework. And this is a framework that, again, we want to give you so that you can help to have a stable place to fall back on during a time that can feel really turbulent and feel really translucent. But before we dive into that framework, what I want to start with is a little warm up, a little stretching exercise, as you will. We like to say in Sprocket, as it turns out, consumers are just people. And right now, everybody is going through this macro shared experience, and it's leading us to have some really unique thoughts and feelings and goals and needs. So the first place I want us to start, because this is going to be a really great place for you to connect with your consumers and really get empathetic and think about where they're at and what they might be needing from you right now. We're going to start with a warm-up where we anchor on these unique thoughts, feelings, goals, and needs. And we're going to do this from a framework that you might have seen before. You might have heard about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Now, on paper, officially by background, I'm a PhD trained psychologist. I know that Maslow's theory does not perfectly explain people's motivation. That's not the goal here today. Rather, we want to rely on Maslow to think about how our consumers might be experiencing this COVID situation and what their needs might be, but using this Maslow's framework as a very holistic way of doing that. So let's start at the bottom of this pyramid. Our consumers still have physical needs, and these are the most basic physical needs: eating, sleeping, shelter. What I want you to think about in this, as we go through each of these steps, is how might these be different now? So eating, take that for an example. Many people are without a paycheck right now. This may be really difficult for them in a way that wasn't before. Or going to the grocery store is something that is not as easy and not something that we're doing as often. Eating out is not something that we're doing as often. So the way that we took care of our physical needs is not the same as it was before. Shelter is another really easy one to pick on. Shelter, when we think about the role that our home played in our lives, it really was a place of shelter for us. Now that home is playing a multiplicity of roles in our lives as we're spending nearly all of our time in our homes. And because of that, that can bring up some unique goals and needs and thoughts and feelings for your consumers. So as I'm going through each one of these stages, just jot a few of them down in the context of your own business. Let's spend this time working on your own business so that you walk away from this having gotten something from it. So the first place I want you to focus is physical needs. How might your consumers be eating, sleeping, shelter, some of those basic things? How might they be doing that differently now? Second, let's go to safety. There are a lot of concerns now in the realm of safety that we didn't have before. Avoiding COVID is one that everybody has on their minds these days. But also, I mentioned financial security, that feeling of security and safety that you know that a paycheck is coming in or that you have savings that you can rely back on. All of that is relevant in terms of our consumers feeling safe and secure right now. So what thoughts, feelings, goals, needs might be coming up in the realm of safety in this unique situation that we're in? Third is social. This one is so obvious, right? Connecting with friends and family is something that we used to do so easily. And now it's something that we're not really doing at all because of social distancing and quarantine. We're using things like technology to connect with friends and family, whereas before we might have met in person. So thinking about how those connections, and I would even go further than that because there is direct social and more intensive social interaction that we get from connection with family and friends, but there's a whole host of social interaction benefits that we get from simply casual passerby interactions, like eye contact with a particular clerk at a store, or when you're picking up your coffee saying hello to the barista. Those all have a psychological well-being impact on us, and we're not getting those today either. So think about, again, thoughts, feelings, goals, needs that might be coming up for your consumers in the realm of their social lives that are different or missing now. Second to last is esteem. This is things like accomplishing goals and feeling successful. As we were hopping on and before we started recording, I was asking people how it's going working from home. I don't know if anybody else shares this sentiment, but I don't really feel like I'm firing on all cylinders these days. I'm not feeling like I'm accomplishing as much as I used to. I definitely don't feel as successful as I used to because we're juggling so much right now. Your consumers likely feel the same, especially again, if they are maybe out of work, they're not getting a paycheck right now, that could really take a hit in this esteem area, and connecting to how they're thinking and feeling and how that might be changing the goals that they have will go a long way to help you be empathetic with your consumers and really dive into this exercise even more. And last, actualizing, expressing creativity, feeling free and spontaneous. Again, this is something that's been impacted, especially this freedom and spontaneity aspect of this. It's been impacted greatly by what we've been going through as of late. We don't have as much freedom as we did before. We are not allowed to be as spontaneous as we were before. So keep in mind how this might be impacting your consumers. And as you look at all of these, just know that certain ones might be more important, but we want you to go through each one of them systematically, because sometimes it's those secondary goals. Sometimes it's the not obvious piece that really leads people to make a deep connection with you, because you can show them that you really understand where they're at, because you've thought deeper than just the surface level experience that they might be having. Okay, so that was our quick warm up. What I'm going to do now is turn it over to Justin, who's going to take you through our Was Now framework.
Hey everyone, this is Justin, and April, thanks for that good warm-up. We're going to pick up the thread right where you left off. Like April was saying, a lot of things have completely changed in a matter of a short amount of time, and people now have new barriers to confront when it comes to accomplishing their goals. And these barriers might be functional, as in you can't leave the house. They may be social. You can't connect to a person like you have in the past, or emotion, like April was mentioning, around things like lost motivation. So as a marketer or business owner, it's entirely critical that you update your knowledge of your customers' context as well as where their minds are at. So in order to do that, what we want to walk you through is what we call a Was Now exercise to develop a bit of empathy with what your customers or prospects are going through. And what we have on the screen here is an example simple exercise that forces you to think about what your, again, prospects or customers' life was like prior to the current environment, and what it's like now. And a quick pro tip here is that this can change frequently, as we all know too well at this point. So performing this exercise multiple times might be a helpful thing. So we like to think that an ad lib like this, with this type of structure, is helpful. And so take a peek at it, and then we're going to unpack this one by one, and we'll also give you a couple of downloadable tools to help you out when you go and do this on your own. But the model here, or the framework, is when context, our prospects or customers want to, and that's a goal in supporting needs, and they used to do a certain behavior, but now they have a barrier standing in the way, which leaves them feeling in emotion. So that's the format. If we want to go to the next slide, what I want to do is point your attention toward where you can actually download this. This is a free download. You don't need to put in your email or anything. Just go to sprocketcx.com/wasnow, and you'll be able to download this and use it. If you're in a place in a time right now where you can download it, that's great. You can actually use it for the rest of our exercise. If you want to do it later, that's fine too. But again, it's at sprocketcx.com/wasnow. No need to put an email or anything there. You'll just be able to get it directly. So let's unpack this one element at a time. We're going to start with the first phrase here, which is when context. And to better illustrate each of these elements as I go through, I'm actually going to use carpet cleaning as just an example solution or industry, just to put, just so that we stay consistent here and giving you some examples of what each of these pieces are. So when you start building a phrase like this, we always like to start with context, and this is the background scenario that your prospect or customer finds themselves in. So if we use the example of carpet cleaning, this might be when I perform a thorough spring cleaning on my home. So it's important to define context precisely because people behave very differently in different contexts, and it'll provide insight into how you can help them. So if you have the canvas already and you're using this at home, what we're going to do is we're going to fill out that first line, which is the when blank. And again, this is the context, the physical, geographical, situational, or psychological context your customers are in. So take a few moments now to jot down your context within the framework of your business. But think of a common scenario your customer interacts with you in your business. So where are they physically? Where are they geographically, or especially now mentally, where are they? If you don't have a canvas, no worries. You can just follow along, and you can do this on your own time later on as well. So go ahead and take a minute there, and then we'll turn to the next slide here in just a moment, April. All right, let's go on to the next one. The next phrase in this model for Was Now is our prospects and customers want to blank. And this blank is their goals and supporting needs. And so the people you serve ultimately are hiring you to help them accomplish something, which is their goal, what they're trying to accomplish. They also have a desire to accomplish that in a certain way, and we call those needs. So as an example here, As a carpet cleaning service, you might help your customers rid their home of dust and allergens, which would be their goal. That's what they want to accomplish. But some people might want to do it the quickest, some might want to do it the cheapest, some might want to do it in an environmentally friendly way. Those are needs. And so this is the next part of the ad lib, which is defining those goals and supporting needs. And if we turn to the next slide, what we'll see is that this is the next phrase to fill out. So again, if you're keeping score at home, feel free to jot this down. But our customers want to blank. Think about what they functionally are trying to accomplish with their goal, and then how they define success. Are they trying to do something quickly, cheaply, environmentally friendly? The list goes on and on and on, but take a moment here to go ahead and think about that. So now let's look at the next part of the phrase, which is, and they used to blank. And this blank is all about behavior. So the first two pieces of our ad lib don't really change over time. People's goals and needs essentially stay the same as it in respect to how they engage with your business. But in a time of crisis, you have to look out for rapid changes in their behavior. As April alluded to earlier, times they are a changing, and we as consumers, our people and our behavior is changing. So the first step is to define what normal behaviors used to be like prior to the crisis. So an example in the carpet cleaning service might be customers used to welcome service technicians into their home without hesitation. We know that to be different, but right now we're just defining that normal behavior prior to this environmental change. So again, for carpet cleaning, our example, customers welcome service technicians into their homes without hesitation. So same thing, if you have your canvas in front of you, you can feel free to jot this one down. What is it that was typical for your business? Just think about what that behavior was. You know, what was that normal that was not so long ago for you and your consumers? You might choose to select a behavior anywhere along your customer's journey for this. For example, how they used to find out about you, or a behavior related directly to a purchase, or perhaps even how they used to use your product or service and behavior like that. So take a moment and just think about what that current behavior used to be. All right, now we're getting to the cause of the disruption here, the but now phrase. So but now blank, and this is the barrier that's standing in the way. And so this is the barrier that's ultimately preventing your prospects or customers in behaving the way that they typically would. No surprise here, our timely example for our carpet cleaning service, our hypothetical carpet cleaning service, is that people's concern for their personal safety due to COVID-19, right? So this is the big barrier that we're all facing in business and personally. And as we go to the next slide, that's the phrase to fill out. April mentioned this earlier, though. While we're taking a moment in time and our barrier is nearly universal, this will change over time, and you'll find that there are consumer barriers sometimes that are extreme, like we're experiencing now, or those that are smaller and less significant, but ultimately you'll use this to define it. So let's go ahead and move that then to the last part of the phrase, which leaves them feeling blank. And this blank is all about emotions. And so we don't want to just stop with the barrier and the behavior. We want to understand what our consumers or customers are feeling, because ultimately we as humans react with feelings first and thinking second. So that's the place where we're going to focus on here at the end. So the last element is all about this emotional response. For example, our carpet cleaning service customers may feel anxious about having a service technician enter their home. That would be a feeling that's a direct reaction to the barrier. But what you also might find about your business, like our hypothetical carpet cleaners is that they also might feel a lack of accomplishment because they can't get their carpets clean like they typically would. So be on the lookout for emotions that go beyond just the direct response. Like April said, many of us are feeling a wide array of emotions today, from the lack of satisfaction in being accomplished and successful. Those are valid feelings, but also fear and anxiety and just overall not being comfortable are also up for grabs here as well. So let's go ahead and fill out the rest of the canvas there, which leaves them feeling blank. Think about what this is for your business. What types of emotions are you feeling, or your customers feeling because of the barrier, but also secondary, like we mentioned too. It might not just be the direct anxiety, fear, or other emotions directly to the barrier, but it also might be the lack of a feeling of accomplishment, as an example. So let's put it all together and take a peek at the completed was now statement, because once we have this, we're able to turn the corner into innovation and thinking about new growth opportunities. But this is what our carpet cleaners statement looks like all together. I'll just quickly read it to you. So it says, when I perform a thorough spring cleaning on my home, remember that was the context, I want to rid my home of dust and allergens, that's a goal, in an environmentally friendly way, that's a need. I no longer feel comfortable, that's one of the feelings, by letting service technicians into my home. That was the usual behavior because of personal health concerns related to COVID-19, which is our barrier. That leaves me with a lack of accomplishment because I can't perform the task myself. And again, that's another emotional outcome of this as well. So this is the entire was now statement together. One thing to note, folks, is that you're not going to have just one was now statement. The goal here isn't to create just one around your business. There may be multiple. And you as a marketer or business leader will find these to be really good creative starting points to then think of new ways to create solutions and actually grow and become more relevant in this strange time that we find ourselves in. So with that, I'm going to turn the mic back over to April, and we'll turn the corner directly into there.
All right, so we're going to turn the corner, as Justin mentioned, into how we turn our was now statement into growth ideas. So turning that insight into opportunity. And when we think about it, we'll give you three sort of prods. Think about these as nudges, as ways to think about new ways that you might be able to serve your customers during this time. The first way is to minimize or remove the barrier. So we all identified something related likely to COVID-19. So minimizing or removing that barrier that we identified. Number two is finding new ways to deliver your product or service without engaging with the barrier. And number three is removing the negative emotional response to the barrier. So let's unpack each one of those in turn. First is minimizing the barrier. This is probably the most obvious step to take, but it's also likely to be the most difficult, if not impossible at times. So in the case of our example, COVID-19 is the barrier that creates a lot of discomfort around having other people in our homes to perform a service. And it's not really plausible at this time to remove that as a barrier. Other barriers that you may have identified might be easier to overcome. So it might be possible for our hypothetical carpet cleaning service to put technicians in the field who've already contracted and survived COVID-19. So minimizing the perceived threat to consumers, possibly. The second way that we want, or second prod that we want to go over, is to find new ways to market and deliver your product or service without engaging with the behavior or with the barrier. So if you can't minimize or remove the barrier, maybe you can find new ways to deliver that don't interact with that barrier. In the case of carpet cleaning, you could leverage a DIY solution and sell it online. You could also drop off some equipment and rent it to consumers who then perform the service themselves. The point is, how do we help people get to achieve their goal and fulfill that need while sort of circumventing this barrier that we're seeing? And let's look at a couple of examples of companies that are doing just that. Little Caesars is a great example of a company that has gotten around this barrier of people being concerned about being in too close of a proximity with other people. They're offering what they're calling no contact ordering options. So if you look at this, they're giving you a bunch of data points that show you how you can get your pizza without it coming into contact with another person. So this minimizes the concern that people have that they might contract COVID from being in close contact with other people. Something also to notice though, they are future pacing as well with this campaign. They're saying then, now, and always. So not only is this something that you can count on us for during these uncertain times, but you can be confident that we are going to be there for you even after the pandemic is over. So this is a great example of a company that is building relevance with their consumers by offering a service that goes around the COVID threat. Wedded Wellness is another great example. Wedded Wellness is a yoga service provider that focuses on the wedding planning and life transition processes. They quickly moved from a 100% in-person wellness company to a 100% digital company, and they're continuing to serve their consumers in a very similar way to the way they did before. Just the digital transformation of this company was very rapid. So a question for you is, how might you change the way that you deliver your product or service? This may work for you, this may not, depending upon your industry or your business, but it's a good prod question to ask yourself. Let's look at a couple of other examples. Dr. Dish Basketball is a product that is offered from Airborne Athletics, and they have shifted their business to delivering motivational training content to their audience. And this is training content that they can execute from inside their home, since a lot of their audience has lost access to basketball courts and their equipment is really limited. And a lot of this content is being delivered via social media platforms. So although this might not be a direct revenue play for Airborne Athletics at this time, this is definitely a relevance play for them, because they're staying in front of their consumers in a way that is meeting a need that they have right now. They're wanting to continue this hobby and continue their physical activity during a time where it's really difficult, and Dr. Dish is stepping in and Airborne is stepping in to meet that need for them. Vori is another great example. They're a fitness apparel brand, and they've created a daily virtual group yoga class that helps people, again, stay engaged with their brand, but also stay fit and engaged in a hobby that we know that, or that they know their consumers really love. They've created an owned platform, and they're engaging with their target audience there. So think about that future pace. They are engaging and creating this audience that they own, that they can again leverage as this pandemic is over. So how might you change the way that you engage with your audience? And the third prod is to think about how you can minimize or remove the negative emotional response to the barrier. So another option to take, if you can't remove the barrier itself, is to remove the negative association that customers have with the barrier. If customers are uncomfortable with letting, as we mentioned before, letting service technicians into their home, how might you increase their comfort level? So an example might be communicating new safety protocols that you enacted so that you can still deliver the service, as well as training technicians to speak and show customers how they're taking safety precautions both before, during, and after the service delivery. So how can you minimize or remove that emotional response? A couple of great examples: Banana Republic right now saying a little fashion distraction to get through this together. They're helping us minimize our emotional reaction to COVID-19 and the difficulty that we're all experiencing by giving us, quote, fashion distractions, which is also a prompt and an encouragement for people to shop. Lunds & Byerly's, a local grocery store, is also increasing our confidence that they're cleaning after every transaction. They've been very upfront with their customers in communicating really frequently with their customers to say, here are the new actions that we're taking. Here is what you're going to see in the store the next time that you come in, and why we're doing this to protect not only our workers, but also to protect you, our customers. So a prodding question here: how might you increase your confidence and minimize anxiety for your consumers? Something to rely back on, again, is that initial exercise where we waded through a lot of different emotions and thoughts that people might be having from across Maslow's hierarchy. Bring some of those in here, and how might you use those as leverage points in order to connect with your consumers? All right, time to prioritize and experiment, and I'm going to hand it back over to Justin to walk you through that section.
So April mentioned there are 3 different ways to kind of prod for new growth ideas. She mentioned minimizing and removing the barrier, number 1. Number 2 was finding new ways to deliver. And number 3 is looking to minimize or remove the negative emotional response to the barrier. So those are intended to be creative provocations for you, or little prods to get creativity going. And what you'll, I think, find is that you're going to have no shortage of ideas. There'll be plenty of ideas. And at Sprocket, we love ideas, and we love helping our clients create those. We also really love helping them turn the corner into what should you do now versus next. So essentially, what should you pursue first? So it's really tempting to want to execute everything at once. We understand that. But sometimes you also might be paralyzed with the sheer amount of options in front of you. So either way, you need help prioritizing what to do now, next, and never. So you need a set of criteria to help you decide. So let's step into that. So you may have seen this before, here's a formula that we like to use, and I think this might be a build-out, April, if you want to click a time or two. But you need to ask questions of every idea from 3 viewpoints. First is desirability. Will customers be interested in this idea? It's a very important thing. Viability, will you make money? And feasibility, can you execute? So these are the typical categories for evaluation, but in tough times, what we find is that it's especially helpful to put extra weight on leveraging your existing capabilities and assets. So place an even greater focus on feasibility. And why? But it's because investment cash, as you well know now, is probably pretty tight. You need to know that you can utilize existing people, inventory, technology, and knowledge in order to be the most efficient and a helpful use of your resources. So let's go forward and explore this just a bit deeper, starting with desirability on the left. So we always start here because you need to create at least one criteria question based on desirability. And questions from this category ensure that we're asking to what degree our prospects or customers would be likely to engage with this idea. How likely are they to actually like what we're talking about here? So after all, ideas that make business sense and can be executed but are uninteresting, or even worse, turn off customers, are really non-starters. So always begin with desirability. This is the human-centered way to do it. What do people ultimately want? Next is viability. So will this idea, if we execute it well, be profitable for the company? Is it attached to a business model that is attractive beyond the short term? Can it be further scaled? Questions like this allow you to investigate ideas from a business perspective. And then feasibility here on the right. To what degree can you execute this idea? Will it have more, or will it take more or less resources than you have? What kinds of resources will it take? Do you have the people, talents, and knowledge? The list goes on, but this group of questions is critical in turbulent times, because if you can execute new ideas with existing resources, you're much more likely to succeed, and succeed quicker. So for those of you that have just been dying to fire up a spreadsheet, this is your moment. Ultimately, we like to go from a world of what's possible with talking through ideas and growth opportunities with what April walked us through, ultimately getting to ideas on a spreadsheet and evaluating them with how desirable, viable, and feasible they are. So what we would encourage you to do is open up your favorite spreadsheet app and create a grid somewhat similar to this. Criteria questions go at the top, and this is for you to think of what are the appropriate questions to be asking, and score each idea with 1 through 10. If you want to go really crazy, you can play around with the weights of each question, because some questions are more important than others. And here's the deal. If you want to jumpstart on this and you want something that you know the formulas work out of the box, just download it from us, sprocketcx.com/prioritize. It's an Excel spreadsheet. You can go ahead and just nab that from us. Again, no email required. Just go to that URL and you'll be able to download it straight away. So one last piece of advice on this one, though. Use this tool as a sorting tool, not necessarily a, well, the spreadsheet told us to do this, so we're going to do it tool. In this world of innovation and thinking about what to prioritize now versus next, it's critical to use your judgment. Just use this tool with your team to start and finish some really great decision-making conversations. Now, finally, you're ready to rock at this point. You've got a bunch of ideas, you've got them sorted and prioritized, and you're ready to take the next step, and that next step is in creation. You're going to create something new at this point. So if you're feeling confident in your new direction, you might be just jumping straight toward execution and scaling. But on the other hand, there are many times where you'd probably prefer to go a half step in that direction, not a full step. If you're in that camp, we've got a great tool for you here as well, because we'd recommend performing experiments to test and learn. So you can download this free experiment and learn tool on our site as well. The URL is also there at sprocketcx.com/experiment. We also have a couple of great posts on our blog that you might find helpful about creating experiments and giving you some tips on how to do that. So at this point, again, we've kind of come full circle. I'm going to hand it back over to April to close us out.
All right, thanks everybody. Wanted to put back up, Justin mentioned a number of different links to different resources that you have at your disposal. Wanted to make sure that we put this up. Feel free to screenshot this to make sure that you have all of these links and can download this tool set. Also wanted to note that please don't be a stranger. Shoot us a note at hello@sprocketcx.com. We're happy to chat with you about your unique needs and the situation that is happening right now within your business. We definitely love chatting with people about how they can deepen their consumer insight and grow. Thank you for stopping by and hanging out with us today.